So we all know that guy who's always relaxed, who's never stressed, who always has time to do loads of other things apart from study, even though the exam is near. And somehow that guy always gets a perfect score so effortlessly. And when you see things like that, it just seems so unfair. It seems like life is unfair. Why do you have to study for so many hours while that person can just relax and do things that they enjoy? Why does it have to be this way? Well, in this video, I'll be sharing how I've learned to become that person, how I've learned to get good scores in my exams effortlessly. So I'll share the main methods that I use to study and stress less, and these are what allowed me to get through school very smoothly. So the first thing that I've learned to do is to listen actively. But to better understand what active listening is, let me first tell you about passive listening. So when you listen passively in classrooms, you're simply there, you're present in the class, you're taking notes, you're trying to capture as many key points as possible, and your objective is to record as much information as possible so that you can study and understand them later. But when you're actively listening, you are fully aware of what you're hearing, and your objective changes to write first, understand later, to understand now, and revisit it later. So when you're listening, before you even take any notes, you should be asking why. You should be curious about the things that you're hearing. You should ask yourself questions of why is it this way? Why is it not that way? And you should fully understand it first before writing it down. So the idea is to process information before you take notes. I find it more helpful to make eye contact with the speaker instead of just looking at my notes because it makes me more attentive of what I am hearing. So to sum it up, active listening is when you're fully alert and you process the information that you hear before you take notes. So you'd be curious, ask yourself questions, and understand the logic of the whole concept before writing it down as short as possible in your own terms. The next method that I use is to start reviewing early. Now, when it comes to reviewing for your exams, starting early is one of the most important things that you can do. But you may be wondering how starting early means studying less. Shouldn't it be the opposite? I'll get to that in a minute, but first let me tell you about the disadvantages of starting late, aka cramming. So this is what it looks like when you cram. Cramming is when you procrastinate studying until the very last few days before your exams, and then you start studying like hell. Now there are so many disadvantages when it comes to cramming. For example, stress, disappointment, anxiety, hating yourself, suicidal thoughts, and so much more. And many studies have also shown that cramming is bad for long-term memory retention. So now that you know that cramming is not an effective studying method at all, let me tell you about starting early. So this is what it looks like when you start early. You can start by simply reviewing for a few minutes every day, and your studies don't have to be that intense. So this takes away the majority of stress and anxiety. But if you want to take this to the next level, you can try studying in bursts. So this would reduce the time you spend studying even more. And by studying in bursts, you're leveraging active recall. So you're giving yourself time to forget what you have learned and then remember it again. So when you start early and study in bursts, you'll be cutting out so much unnecessary time and you will stress a lot less. So now that you know to actively listen in class and to start early when you review for exams, let's look at how you actually study. The third method that I've learned to use is to study actively. Now when it comes to studying, what most people do is they read their books, they read their notes, and they highlight what they think is important. This may seem fine to you at first, but let me tell you why they are not effective ways of learning. So first of all, you're not retrieving any information by yourself. The information is already there in front of you. All you're doing is looking at it and trying to somehow absorb it into your brain. So you're not using any brain power at all when you study. You're just staring blankly at your textbook, hoping that somehow the information magically flies into your brain. And the second reason why it's not so effective is because you're tricking yourself into thinking that you're being productive. Highlighting and using different colors can seem fun and busy, but being busy and being productive are two completely different things. Rereading and highlighting only gives you the illusion that you're being productive, but in reality, you're just being busy. So instead of rereading your notes, when you study, try to retrieve the information yourself. Now, my favorite way to do this is to explain a concept to myself within a minute. And the reason why I like using this method is, one, you're actively retrieving information by yourself. You're using actual brain power when you study. And the second reason why I like it is it requires no material at all. So it's quick and easy to get started, and you can do it anywhere. But if you don't want to explain the concept to yourself, there are also other ways you can use active recall. You can do this by making flashcards or drawing diagrams, or you can even try reading a page of your book, closing it, and then writing down everything that you have learned. The fourth method that I've learned to use is spaced repetition. Remember the graph that I showed you earlier about starting early versus cramming? Well, what if I told you can shorten that time even more? And you can do this by something called spaced repetition. And the idea is that once you study something and you allow yourself to forget a bit of it, when you come to revisit the same topic again, it will now take you longer to forget the same piece of information. So for example, you are studying topic A. So in the beginning, it takes you 1 day to start forgetting topic A. But after that 1 day, if you come and review topic A again, it will now take you 2 days to forget topic A. And after 2 days, if you come review topic A again, it will now take you, for example, 5 days to forget it. And this time keeps increasing and increasing, and you can do it infinitely. And this is how you make something that you study become long-term memory. So back to the graph. So instead of looking like this, by using spaced repetition and increasing the intervals between bursts every time, it will now look like this. So by starting early, studying in short bursts, and using spaced repetition, you will be cutting out so much time that you need to spend studying, and you can use this time to go through other things that you enjoy. But how do you do all this without burning out? How do you do it without giving up midway? Well, this leads me to my last tip. The last thing that I've learned to do is to focus on the process of learning instead of your results. And this is a little mindset shift that makes a massive difference. It will erase so much stress out of your life. So when we do practice questions while studying, what most of us do is we judge ourselves based on the score that we get. So after finishing the paper, if we get a good score, we will be happy. And if we get something wrong, we will feel sad and disappointed in ourselves. But by focusing on the process of learning, you will begin to kind of appreciate every wrong question that you get, because it's an opportunity for you to learn something new. It's an opportunity for you to learn how to do that question and never repeat the same mistake ever again. So this way, by focusing on the actual process of learning, every study session will feel like a win. Your goal changes from getting the highest score possible to learning something new. So the next time you do practice questions, try to focus a bit more on the process of learning and let the scores take care of itself. So those were the 5 methods that I used to cut out time I spent studying. If you found this video even a bit helpful, consider subscribing because I have a lot more content incoming.